and say buck instead of fuck. I've had a rough time just lately, last couple of months. I think it started when I looked at my birth certificate and I saw that it had an expiration date on it. I don't know whether it was that, but anyway, I ended up in the hospital. Any of you here been in the hospital recently? It's pretty awful. I mean, you really got to be pretty sick to go in a place like that. But I went into our local one, just north of town. Dural gangrene. Actually, my brother is in there. My brother, he's critical. He's all right, but he's just damn critical. He doesn't like his food, he doesn't like his food, he doesn't like me. I was a little concerned going there, though. The ambulance that was rushing me to the hospital, it took the time to stop and pull over and fill up with gas. Didn't even check the oil. Anyway, when I got there, as usual, they give you a form to fill out. So I was filling it out, and there's this question: in case of emergency, who should we contact? I wrote the doctor. That's a no-brainer, sure. So while I was filling out the form, this young nurse came along pushing a wheelchair with a young man in it. And the young man looked up at her and he said, are my testicles black? And she stopped and she went around the front and she knelt down, she lifted his gown, and she looked and she lifted his penis and she looked and she felt around and she stood up and she said, well, everything looks fine to me. He said, well, thank you, but could you answer my question? Are my test results back? They gave me some tests actually while I was there. They gave me a cholesterol test, but it was all bacon. They gave me an x-ray and there was this spot on my lungs, but it turned out to be barbecue sauce. At one time they gave me, while I was there, they gave me a general anesthetic. Now, that's a pretty wonderful thing. I don't know how many of you had it, but with a general anesthetic, you go to sleep in this one room, and about 4 hours later, you wake up in a totally different room. It's just like being in college. My first morning there, I was lying in my bed, and the doctor started his rounds. He came in, and I said, how am I, Doc? He said, well, you have to stop masturbating. I said, why is that? He said, well, I want to check you over. Anyway, he checked things out, and he said, do you have any problems? I said, well, as a matter of fact, yes. I said, when I press against my left kneecap, I get a terrible pain. And then when I press against my left wrist, I get a terrible pain. And when I press against my left shoulder, I get a terrible pain. Why is that? He said, it's pretty simple. You've got a sore finger. Stop pressing it. A nurse came into the room while he was there. She had a clipboard. She said, no. She said, doctor, I need you to sign this graph for me. So he felt in his pocket. He pulled out a rectal thermometer. He looked at it. He said, damn, some asshole's got my pen. Anyway, from there, he left me, and he went to see the patient in the next room. And I could hear him in there. He said, I've got bad news for you, and I've got good news for you. He said, the bad news is that we're going to have to amputate both your feet at the ankles. He said, but the good news is, I found a guy who wants to buy your boots. I got to thinking of him as the bad news doctor, because a couple of days later, I overheard him talking to another patient, and he said, I've got some bad news for you, and I've got some really bad news for you. The patient said, well, give me the bad news. The doctor said, you've only got 48 hours to live. I said, oh no, oh my God. Wait a minute, what could be worse than that? What's the really bad news? The doctor said, I meant to tell you this yesterday. I was really glad to get out of there. You know, on the way out, as a matter of fact, I went past the surgery, past the operating theatre, and there was a terrific commotion going on in there. I could hear the patient screaming, I could hear the nurse shouting and screaming, I could hear the doctor shouting and screaming. I stopped to listen. I heard the doctor saying, no, nurse, that's not what I said. What I said was, slip off his spectacles. I was so glad to get out of there. In fact, the next day, when I was home again, the next evening, I came down here to Hotel Millersburg and spent the evening in the bar. And I was standing there having a drink, and the place was really jumping. There was loud music playing, and everybody was having a good time. And as I was standing there, I suddenly got these terrible stomach cramps. And I knew right away what it was from being in the hospital. I knew that it was just wind. That it was this terrible wind you get in the stomach can be so painful. And I knew that the only way to get over this was to fart. Well, when you're standing in a crowded bar, you really can't just fart, can you? I mean, even to get rid of this stomach cramps. So I thought, well, wait a minute, there's loud music playing, and it's got a terrific beat to it. If I time things right, if I can fart on the beat, then perhaps nobody will hear me. So I tapped my foot with the music, and I let go with a huge fart. And it felt so good, you know, I immediately felt relief. In fact, it felt so good, I let go with another 4, 5, 6 farts. Felt great about it. And I happened to look up and I saw that everybody had stopped what they were doing, and they were all staring at me. And I suddenly remembered I was listening to the music on the earphones of my iPod. Do you ever wonder what happens to farts? Where do farts go? I mean, we all fart, I'm sure we all do. Many of us fart many times a day. Sometimes some of us fart at night as well, right, Kevin? And we all do it. We fart every day, day after day, every week, month, year, we fart. People all across the country are farting. People all around the world are farting. Billions, zillions of farts going on. What happens to these? Well, as it happens, when I was in the hospital, I picked up a magazine, and it was a medical magazine, it had an article in there about farts. And it explained it. It said that basically farts are just hot air. Well, from school, we all know that hot air rises, right? So apparently, farts rise. They rise up into the air. They go up and up, all around the world, up and up. And up there, of course, is the ozone layer. Well, the farts go above that, and right above the ozone layer is the fart layer. It was in this medical magazine. It's right up there. So that's what happens. Now, I'm sure you've all heard in recent years the concern the scientists have for the ozone layer. They say that it's breaking up, that we're losing the ozone layer. Now, think about it. If we lose the ozone layer, there's nothing to keep up the fart layer. And what would happen is that all those farts will come back down to earth. And here's the kicker. They won't be going back to their original owners. I'll leave you with that thought. Thank you.